Hey guys, Blaze Gamer here, back with another YouTube video, and today we're going to be talking about Robert Whittaker vs Kelvin Gastelum. The fight takes place this Saturday, April 17th, on the same day as the Jake Paul-Ben Askren fight, so look forward to two breakdown videos after the fights have happened. So let's jump straight in to the main card. The first fight we have is Ricardo Ramos vs Bill Algeo. Now, I don't really know too much about either guys, but I just know that Ricardo Ramos is coming off a bit of a losing streak to Lerone Murphy. I believe it's Bill Algeo's UFC debut, so it's always interesting to see how a new fighter to the UFC will look on his UFC debut. Again, either he's going to prove that he's one of the best fighters in the world, or he's not quite there yet. So I look forward to seeing how he's going to look. As for Ricardo Ramos, just looking at his resume, he's lost and beat some pretty good guys in the division. He's lost to Said Nurmagomedov, Lerone Murphy, so he's lost to two prospects coming up in the featherweight division. So I look forward to this fight. As to who I'd probably favour Ricardo Ramos, just because he's got that UFC experience, which I do think will play a factor into that fight. He's been in there with UFC caliber opponents, so he knows the UFC has the best fighters in the world, as Dana White's already said. So I do think that will be his advantage, his UFC experience. As for my prediction, I believe he'll get the job done by decision. Just looking at his resume, he's not really a known knockout artist or submission specialist. He's just sort of picks his opponent apart, takes his time, very technical. So I look forward to seeing how he's going to look in this fight. I think he could really showcase his skills against a guy who's making his UFC debut. So the next fight is Violent Bob Ross Louis Piana versus Alexander Munoz. Now, I don't really know too much about Alexander Munoz. All I know is that he's undefeated, which again will be a huge factor for him coming into this fight, because he'll have a ton of confidence. He's never tasted defeat, so again, the confidence and just that experience of being undefeated, dealing with that hyper momentum, I think will be his advantage, but also disadvantage sometimes if you are undefeated and you're coming in to the UFC, probably the biggest fighting platform in the world right now. I guess there is a lot of pressure. We've seen some fighters fold under pressure in the past, but as I say, it doesn't really impact him that much because it's his very first UFC fight and there's not really too much to know about him. So I think this could be a really good fight for Alexander Munoz to really make a statement, really prove that he's one of the top dogs coming in to the lightweight division, which is a crazy stacked division that he's going to be coming into. You've got Gregor Gillespie and Brad Riddell. They were meant to fight, which is going to be a great fight. So you've got some really stellar lightweights coming up. Beneil Dariush and Tony Ferguson that have been scheduled to fight. So you've got some really stellar fighters coming up in the lightweight division. So I look forward to seeing how he's going to look in his UFC debut. As for who I'd favour, I probably would favour Louis Piana. It is a tough fight to call because I do think, as I say, that undefeated confidence always does help the fighter, and I do think that does, as I say, play a big factor into your mindset. And also, you don't know how it's going to affect Louis Piana, but then again, it could also be good because sometimes, you've seen fighters who want to take on undefeated fighters just to be the first person, just to get that satisfying sort of victory over them, to be the first person that's beaten them. But as for who I'd favour, I probably would favour Louis Piana just because of his UFC experience. As I say on the last fight, I do think it does play a big factor, just being in there with UFC caliber opponents, just having that experience, just having that knowledge of being in there with some of the best fighters in the world. Excuse me guys, I'm very stoned right now. But yeah, I definitely would favour Louis Piana. His style, his charisma, he's a very cool character in the UFC. I really like him, very fun to watch, very kind of similar to a Mike Perry kind of character, and the charisma that he has, very memorable. Got a very cool nickname. So stylistically, he's not a known knockout artist or submission specialist or anything like that, but he just comes with a ton of heart, ton of grit. He always comes to put on a really entertaining fight, so I really do look forward to this fight. I believe Louis Piana can get the job done by knockout in the first round. I believe he can really shut the lights out of Alexander Munoz, really make a statement on an undefeated fighter. So I look forward to the fight. Let me know your predictions down below for the fight so far. Sorry about that. I always do that. Let me guys know. It's always a blooper that I always end up leaving in the video. But the next fight we have is Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Jacob Malkoun. Now, Abdul Razak Al Hassan unfortunately is coming off a loss to Chaos Williams, but it was a sweet knockout. that Chaos Williams scored her, I'm not going to lie. But, coming into that fight, he had a ton of hype. I think he was the first UFC fighter from Ghana, so he's another African fighter, which is, awesome, because, look at the UFC right now, you've got 3 African-American champions, so it's great just to see more diversity shine through in the UFC. If you look at the champions that I have, it's very diverse, my bad. So I'm very intrigued to see how he's going to look. I know that knockout, either it's going to have an impact on his confidence, or he's going to shine through, come back, guns swinging, much like Jairzinho Rosenstrike did against Junior Dos Santos. So I think even his one of his first knockout loss potentially either is going to be a weak point and might have a bit of a mental impact on him, or he's going to use it as a strength and really look to come back and really make a statement and prove why he belongs in the UFC. As for Jacob Malkoun, that dude is a killer. I think he's got back-to-back knockouts, and he's must-see TV at the minute, guys. Every time I see him on a card, I'm excited. He trains with Robert Whittaker. He's from Australia. He's a great fighter. I can't wait to see him fight. As I say, his last 2 knockouts have been really impressive. He's not too over aggressive. He's very patient. He's very sort of calculated in his approach to the fight. So I think he's got great potential. Again, as I say, if he can keep on his winning ways, I think he could be a really formidable force in the middleweight division. Looking at his record, he's 4-1, which is a pretty good record. So he hasn't got too much experience, but he's a great fighter. Just looking at Abdal Razak Al Hassan, 10-3. So they've both got pretty good records, both relatively new in the sport of MMA. Just looking at their KO percentage too. Abdal Razak Al Hassan's got a 100% KO finishing rate. So that's crazy. Whereas I'm saying Jacob Malkoun's a knockout artist. He's only got a 50% chance. That's crazy. But yeah, the stats for these guys: knockdown average. 3.64 what per. I don't know if that's good or not, but per 15 minutes. But just looking at their stats, there isn't really any stats on Jacob Malkoun, because I don't think he's really had too many fights. But that Abdal Razak Al Hassan. As for who I'd probably favour, I probably would go with Jacob Malkoun. Again, I got to stay on track with him. I think he's a great fighter. I think, as I say, he's got great potential. He's got Robert Whittaker. He trains with Robert Whittaker, which is insane, former middleweight champion. So I look forward to seeing him fight again. I do think Abdal Razak Al Hassan could definitely get it done, but I do think it's always interesting to see how a first knockout loss impacts the fight, whether it will play a big impact on their mindset, the way they come into the fight. Are they going to want to charge forward and risk getting countered again? So as for who I'd favour, again, I will be siding with Jacob Malkoun. I think he can get the victory, done by knockout in the first round. So I look forward to the fight. But the next fight is Andrei Arlovski versus Chase Sherman. Now this is a really cool fight. It's good to see Andrei Arlovski back in the octagon again quite quickly, considering he lost to Tom Aspinall, who's a great prospect coming out of the UK. Just fought on the Lewis Blades card, which was a crazy fight. He's the first one of only 2 people to submit Andrei Arlovski. Andrei Arlovski's record: 30 wins, 20 losses. So he's got 50 fights, which is absolutely crazy. He's been in the UFC for a very, very long time. Been in there with some of the best fighters in the world. He's an absolute vet. He's lost and beat some of the best. So absolutely nothing but respect for Arlovski taking the fight on short notice. Chase Sherman, I think he's a decent fighter. He's a good fighter. He's on a 4-fight win streak. He hasn't beat anyone. He hasn't beat any big names. So I think this is definitely the biggest fight of Chase Sherman's career in terms of opponent and caliber that he fights at. So I think this is a big fight for Chase Sherman. Again, he hasn't really beat anyone too impressive. I know his last fight, I don't know how you say his name, but Ike Villanueva. I believe he beat him on his UFC debut. It was pretty impressive, pretty decent. Just picked him apart. So as for who I'd favour, I would definitely favour Andrei Arlovski, just because of that UFC experience. Chase Sherman hasn't really beat anyone as of recently, so I definitely would favour Andrei Arlovski. I know he's taken the fight on short notice, but if you look at his experience, he's a true vet, and I think this is probably just like eating a bowl of cereal for him in the morning. I know that's a weird metaphor, but this quick turnaround shouldn't be a big deal for Arlovski, and it shouldn't be a disadvantage coming into this fight. I definitely think Andrei Arlovski can get the job done by decision. But moving on to the next fight, we've got Jeremy Stephens versus Drakkar Klose. Now this is a really fun fight for Drakkar Klose, probably the biggest name of his career. Drakkar Klose just coming off a loss to Beneil Dariush, no slouch. Beneil Dariush just beat Diego Ferreira in the lightweight division. Great fight of the night. So I think, yeah, this is a great fight for Drakkar Klose to get his name out there, make a statement. You know, it's a ranked name. Jeremy Stephens is number 10, so if he beats Jeremy Stephens, he'll be number 10 in the lightweight division, which is crazy. I mean, the lightweight division is absolutely stacked. Just to think about the names, the top 10, the potential for some of these matchups that we can make in the lightweight division, that the UFC can make in the lightweight division, is crazy. As for who I'd favour, I definitely would favour Jeremy Stephens. I mean, again, as I said, for the UFC experience, I feel like this card is kind of like, you know, UFC vets going up against these up and coming fighters, and I think it's going to be a really great card. I love these fights where it's either going to be, you know, the newer generation of UFC fighters making a statement, or the old vets are going to prove that they're there to stay. So I like some of these matchups on this card. You know, Jeremy Stephens' style, it gets him, has got him knocked out. I think he's on a 4-fight knockout losing streak, which is quite insane. You know, but he's lost to some great opponents: Jose Aldo, Kelvin Gastelum, Rodriguez. No slouches in at all. So he's lost some really solid names. I think, yeah, he's coming back up to lightweight. I want to say his last fight was at featherweight, against Kelvin Gastelum. So I look forward to this fight very much. So Drakkar Klose's style very similar to Jeremy Stephens, just wants to come forward and take your head off. He's not necessarily a known knockout artist in Drakkar Klose. He hasn't really got too many fights, but you know, he's very technical, very strategic, and he will, if he sees the opportunity, put your lights out any chance he gets. So I think stylistically this is a very fun fight, great fight for Drakkar Klose, again, to get a ranked opponent and get into the top of the lightweight division. So moving on to the main event, Robert the Reaper Whittaker versus Kelvin the Iron Chin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum never ever been knocked out, and I don't think Robert Whittaker will knock him out. I think this is stylistically a very even fight. You know, both fights in their recent fights, and you know, Gastelum's last fight against Ian Heinisch, he showed that his striking's still there. He's got great grappling. He's always had great grappling, but it seems like he's really using his grappling a lot more these days, just to, you know, get the job done. I think his last fight, I think that the power in his hands have deteriorated a little bit since the Adesanya fight. I think Adesanya did take a lot out of Kelvin Gastelum. I think his chin's still there. I just don't think he's got that timing or speed in his hands anymore. So I do think in this fight it will be a grappling fight. I think Whittaker definitely has the tools to stand with Gastelum, obviously, and I don't think he could put him out because of Gastelum's iron chin. But I think if Whittaker is to go out there and knock Gastelum out there, I think that's going to be a really huge statement for the middleweight division, for Robert Whittaker to prove that he's still the king of the division. But if you look at the fight stylistically, the way Robert Whittaker approaches the fight, he's pretty much the same in the way, you know, his stance. He just sort of bounces forward, comes in and out, gets, you know, bops your leg, comes in with a straight jab combination, very good combination. No, that stiff jab combination gets you to open up, gets you thinking, gets you wanting to sort of play into Whittaker's game of coming forward, trying to attack him. Then Whittaker will counter you. You know, as soon as you think you're comfortable, as soon as you think you're beating Rob, that's when Rob actually comes back and he fights through, and he proves to you, no, I'm winning this fight here. So I think stylistically it's a very fun fight. It's a fight that's been in the making for the past 2 years. You know, they were scheduled to fight 2018. That was originally going to be the fight. Instead of Adesanya versus Gastelum, it was going to be Whittaker versus Gastelum. I believe Whittaker had, you know, he had a really severe injury. So it's good to see this fight finally happen. I think it is, you know, the right time. And I think there's mad respect for Kelvin Gastelum for taking the fight. I know Robert Whittaker was originally meant to fight Paulo Costa. I think he got too drunk on wine, had some wine issues, but props to Kelvin Gastelum for taking the fight on about 2-3 weeks notice. I think this is a great fight for Gastelum to get, you know, back to the top of the division, prove that he's still one of the best names in the middleweight division. So as I said, I look forward to this fight. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe. I know I didn't upload yesterday, guys. I've been quite busy recently, just been planning videos, you know, But I know I have also been talking about the Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan video. That video will definitely be coming this week. I'm still working on it. It's just been taking a lot of time. It is going to be a long video. It's a very good rematch that I really want to talk about. But also stay tuned for another Fortnite video. I'm going to be doing an epic Fortnite kill montage video as well, and there's some more sweet videos planned for this week. I might even do a double upload, so if you guys